these are the 30 best free VR games that you can get on the Quest 3 and Quest 3S and that are actually worth playing. So let's dive right into it. And starting it off on number 1, we have Downshot. Now this is a crazy physics-based sandbox experience where you can spawn in nearly anything that you can think of. And that can go from vehicles to enemies, as well as some special gear or even your very own superpowers. But it is mostly the chaotic multiplayer mode and the hundreds of different maps and mods that you can apply that really make this game a complete VR playground. And on number 2 is Starvault. Now this is a MOBA which is similar to something like League of Legends, but then inside of virtual reality. So that means that you will have to choose from a roster of different heroes and fight your way through victory with them in its 5v5 online matches. And while it is possible to get some extra cosmetic skins in here, the base game itself is completely free, with luckily no pay to win stuff at all. But moving on, we have number 3, which is VRFS, the football simulator. And as the name already implies, this game will let you play soccer, but then with your legs being replaced by your controllers. And while this might take some getting used to, it is definitely a competitive game that also has some awesome community created maps that you can try out to test out your skills. And talking about skills, we have number 4, known as AIM-XR. Now this is your standard multiplayer shooter that gained quite some popularity over the years. However, while the graphics might not be on par with some other FPS titles out there, the gameplay itself is now pretty smooth and it is also a lot less buggy than that it was on launch, which is also the case for our number 5, and that is Off Track VR. Now this is a highly rated racing experience that will let you hit its big open maps and tracks with one of their different customizable motorcycles. But on top of that, the developers also added in some extra features, such as custom lobbies and a voice chat, so that besides just racing, you also have the option here to chill out with your friends. Although, chilling is not what you will be doing in the next game, which is Devil's Roulette. Because in here, you'll be playing with the ultimate high stakes in a deadly game of chance, all by taking turns of trying to predict if the next shot is a life round or a blank. Luckily though, you will also have a bunch of interesting items and power-ups at your disposal that can give you a slight advantage if you use them strategically. But that gets us to number 7, which is Untangled. And this one is probably best described as a Spider-Man VR simulator, because in Untangled, you'll be able to shoot your webs and fly across its city, while you're also trying to help out the inhabitants and fight some crime while you're at it. And this is honestly closest that we will get to a real free Spider-Man VR game. But if you want something more chill, then we got number 8, and that is Vegas Infinite, since this is simply a big VR casino where you will be able to play all your go-to card games and slots while not having to worry at all about you losing your entire house for it. However, while it also has lots of different games besides your standard poker and blackjack, most people actually enjoy it for the social aspect of it. And on number 9, we have Hyperdash, and this is also directly one of the oldest free VR games that you can get on Quest. But even after all this time, it is still a great unique multiplayer experience that will have you real grind across its maps while also dashing at insanely high speeds. Just keep in mind though, that this game can get pretty intense. So if you are a new player that quickly gets motion sick, then you might want to wait this one out and try instead number 10, which is Bait. Because this is pretty much the most relaxing title that you can play in general. Since in it, all you have to do is just cast out your line and sit back while you're cracking open a cold one with your friends and trying to catch one of the biggest fishes in the lake. But besides just fishing, there are also a bunch of mini games that you can try in here, making this a pretty great title if you just want to wind down after a long day of work. But that gets us to number 11, which is Spatial Zombies. And unlike most other VR games on this list, this one makes use of mixed reality to turn your own living room into a full-on battlefield, and where you will have to survive through waves upon waves of zombies. And number 12 is No Clip VR. Now this is a popular horror game that puts you into the backrooms itself and where you will have to quickly solve its puzzles to get out before getting caught by whatever lives down there. But moving on, we got number 13, which is Veil. And this is a high quality FPS game that has a free to play training ground as well as a social hub and extraction mode. However, it is important to mention that some of the game modes are sadly locked behind a paywall. But honestly, the free to play stuff should already be more than worth it. And number 14 is Ultimax, which is pretty much Rocket League, but then with giant robots instead of cars. So in here, you'll have to use your powered up arms to guide the ball and score goals, either in 2x2 or 1v1 matches, with some of the online players in here also being really hardcore. And next up, we got number 15, known as Airport Security. Now, this is a very goofy VR experience that will have you embody an airport officer who has to check out all the baggage and people that are boarding on the planes. But while the art style might look very basic, the gameplay can be really funny, especially when played with other people online. And that same goes for number 16, which is Orion Drift. Now, this title is actually from the developers behind the game Gorilla Tag and the infamous Echo Arena. So while you can expect that same type of locomotion in here that makes use of your arms to move around, the game itself, though, is very different from its previous titles. Because in here, you will find yourself on a big floating spaceship that has loads of different sports and activities to try out. And these can go from futuristic ball sports to entire obstacle courses and much more. But if this is the type of game that you enjoy, then you might also like number 17, known as Wizard. And that is because this one also has those same arm swinging mechanics, but is instead fully placed in a fantasy dungeon crawling setting. So in it, you'll be swinging powerful spells against loads of different opponents. And with each run being different every time that you start over, it will also keep you coming back for more. And while still in early access, it has gone up in popularity in no time. And that same can be said for our number 18, which is Gym Class. Because this old school basketball simulator has been around for quite some time while still being one of the most played sports games on the Quest headsets. But next to just basketball, they have also added in some other cool sports in here over the years. And on number 19, we got Paintball Playground. And yes, this is your standard paintball inside virtual reality, but then without having to worry about being injured or getting blue spots all over yourself. And for those more advanced players, the developers have also unlocked the game editor inside of it, so that you can even create your own cool maps if you want to. And on number 20 is Blast On. Now this used to actually be a paid game in the past, but it is now completely free to play. And in here, you'll be dodging bullets like you are John Wick himself, while also trying to take out your opponents at the same time with some well-placed shots. But before we get to the next 10 must-play free meta quest games that you really don't want to miss, let's first have a quick word from the company that made this video possible. Because none other than Cat VR, who are known for creating VR treadmills that look like they come straight out of Ready Player One, are once again taking virtual reality to the next level. Because while we are normally limited by the boundary system inside our VR experiences, it is Cat VR that has created these VR treadmills that let you run and jump without any limitation. And since their most recent version, which is known as the C2 Plus Enhanced, is compatible with every VR headset that you can think of, it is also often considered as the dream upgrade for any VR user. And they even go so far that it has things like haptic feedback built into it, as well as a vehicle hub, which will make it feel even more realistic when you're racing on a track or flying through the sky. And as a cherry on top, you can also use the code VRelity for a whopping $130 off on your entire purchase. So for those who are interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. And on number 21, we have Dimensional Double Shift. Now this one is from the creators behind Job Simulator. And as you might have already noticed, the experience overall is also pretty similar, but now with the main possibility to play it with other people at the same time. And number 22 is Cards and Tankards, which is your typical VR deck builder, but then taking place inside a medieval fantasy tavern. And in here, you'll be battling it out against your opponents in a game that feels very similar to something like Hearthstone. But what the cool thing is that the team behind it has also been adding lots of different updates and features over time, that each add a bunch of new content or complete areas for you to explore. And talking about exploration, we have number 23, known as Animal Company. Now of course, if you've been around in VR, then you have at least heard of or maybe even played Animal Company already. And this game is especially for those people who already love games like Gorilla Tag, but just want something more adventurous, with also some horror elements added into it. Although, if you just prefer the discovering part to it, then another popular alternative is number 24, known as UGG. Because here, you will instead be hatching your own dinosaurs and fighting off some big bosses with the exact same controls that you're used to from the previous titles. And that goes without to say that this also became one of the most popular Quest 3 and Quest 3S games, especially for the younger audience. And on number 25 is Mannequin, which is a unique first-person shooter that will put you into either the agent or the alien side of the team. But the cool thing is that these so-called from outer space mannequins can transform into human-like statues at any given time. And that makes them sometimes a real challenge to find before you get caught by them yourself. And on number 26, we have VR Chat. Now this is pretty much the most well-known social VR application that lets you visit hundreds upon thousands of user-created worlds that can go from full-on games to relaxing experiences or even full recreations of entire shows and anime settings. Just be careful though when you're going into public lobbies, since some of the places are known to have some shady people in them. And number 27 is Gang Warfare. And as you might already expect from the name alone, this game will put you into some intense situations where you will have to take down the bad guys that are running this corrupt city. However, the methods on how you achieve this is all up to you. But moving on, we got X8. Now, this one feels pretty much like a VR version of Overwatch, because besides just a standard roster of heroes that all have their own special abilities, you will also find a bunch of similar game modes in here that go from defense and attack to all out free for alls. And at number 29, we got Sail. Now, in here, you will become a pirate in a big open world, while you will also be exploring the big seas in pursuits of finding some hidden treasure. But if you like some more action, then you can also choose to become the most badass captain in this world and take down all of the other pirate ships that you come across. And at number 30, we have Frenzies. Now, unlike most other first-person shooters on this list, Frenzies has a lot of different game modes to choose from that make it really stand out. Because besides just their colorful art style alone, these modes can go from glitter pick chases to red light, green light, and a bunch more. But that is not all, because there are also a lot of other awesome completely free VR games that you can play inside of VR chat. So click on the video that you see on screen right now to make sure you don't miss out on that. And of course, stay awesome.